This is Jets FM on EOFN. As yes, believe it or not, the New York Jets are riding a winning streak as we enter week 17. And as they say, it doesn't matter when the wins come, it's that they come at all. And the Jets have secured the second pick in the NFL draft. So this week's game against the Patriots will mean nothing. Might as well go out there and win it if you can. That's it. And Trevor Lawrence, those dreams are over. So as we have said over the last few weeks, that should impact the Jets coaching search. We'll talk more about that and much more as I welcome in Jan Levine. So Jan, hey, you know what? It's over. It is what it is. Nothing we can do about it. Now we just got to look ahead, take flight. Green skies ahead. That's the attitude.
Well, we knew that the Jets were quote unquote in a wee bit of trouble when the announcement came out on Friday. I think it was that Friday or Saturday that 4 of the Browns wide receivers were not going to play because of COVID.
Yeah.
And they were elevating 4 people off the practice squad.
You had to feel good about that if you took the Jets.
I think we all kind of expected, because I was talking to a friend of mine, was Nick Chubb right, Kareem Hunt left, Nick Chubb up the middle, Kareem Hunt out wide on the passing game. They'll go to the tight end a bunch. They'll go to the one remaining receiver, and I think they tried to do that.
Not really, not early. Nine of the first 11 play calls were passes.
Yep. But again, I thought even in the passing game, you would look to incorporate your wide receivers, especially Hunt.
Yeah, they did.
A lot more. They didn't. So that I guess surprised me a little bit. Mayfield didn't have I wouldn't say he had a bad game, but didn't particularly have a good game. Jets got out to an early lead and kind of played on from there. Defense, I thought, played overall fairly well.
Yeah.
I thought a couple of guys had surprisingly good games. I thought the cornerbacks and the safeties actually played pretty decently.
Well, they better have against that group of receivers.
Basham was pretty much all over the place in that game. Gord got his 16,000th yard, which ironically, you got to wonder if this is his last game, because they just announced today that he is not playing next week because of a lung issue. So it's nice to see him get that round number, 16,000 on the ground, 20,000 total yards combined in his career, for which should probably be a Hall of Fame career. But as you said, to quote a baseball announcer, the Jets went back to back and belly to belly with the wins. I thought the most ironic part was, I'm not sure if you were following Twitter on Sunday, but after the game, Jacksonville had asked their fans to put names and numbers, and they would tweet out a picture of it. And somebody suggested Lawrence 16 after they lost and the Jets won. And ironically enough, Jacksonville sent that tweet out the door, which was a little bit of rubbing it in the face in terms of what ended up happening, but expected. And interesting that, a lot of people are speculating, we haven't talked much, but there was that speculation of Jacksonville becoming the London Monarchs, is what a lot of people liked referring to them. There was rumors that the owner wanted to move to London, but Trevor Lawrence could change that whole equation and make them stay local. And now the Jets, we will have 4 months or 5 months of deciphering of what they will do with the number 2 pick overall. Do they go with the quarterback? If they go with quarterback, do they go with Fields or Wilson? Do they trade down to acquire more picks? Do they bypass the QB and go with Darnold for another year? So Joe Douglas now has a very interesting offseason to decide what they're going to do besides the coaching search.
I think the only way, and I feel pretty and look, we even though I have to move, matter of fact, let's just get this out of the way. I'm gonna bring up, probably should have started this weeks ago, but I'm gonna bring up now the percentages. Basically, I have a chart here that says, in percentages, what are the chances that Adam Gase will be fired on Black Monday? And last
week you upped those odds.
It was up to 25% last week.
Let me rephrase that. You reduced the odds of him being fired last week.
Correct.
Is a better way of putting it.
And that's why what I did. That's why what I did is I think people were getting. I think it's a lot easier sometimes to misunderstand you when you're using the different percentages. So this week I decided to flip it and be like, look, I'm not going to say what are the chances that Adam Gase will hang on. That's what I was doing. 0%, 10%, 15%, 20%. It got up to 25% last week. And instead I said, you know what? I'm going to flip it so people understand where I'm coming from more. And this is the number, 70%.
So you've upped it another.
Yeah. So
you've now changed by another
5%
in terms. You were 20 last week.
No, again, I'm flipping the equation. No, I was
25. But you were. Oh, I thought you were 20 last week. Okay.
I mean, I probably said 20, 25. I was probably in that range.
All right, so now you're at 30.
I've been using that 5% kind of.
I'll ask this prospectively.
Okay.
If they happen to beat the New England team that literally has absolutely nothing to play for this week, do you change your percentages again? Or is that locked in now?
It'll be too late.
Regardless
it could
of what
be
happens
too late.
Next week.
By the time we get on the air, it could be all over.
I'm saying that's what I'm asking you now. Prospectively, will your odds change if they win next week or lose next week?
I'm going to say no.
Okay,
that's
fair.
This is where it stops.
That's why
I can't get any lower than 70% that he's going to get fired.
But that's why I prefaced it by saying they are playing the New England team that really has nothing to play for.
Yeah, I'm gonna say 70% is the lowest I will go that he will be fired. And the funny thing is if and when he gets fired, because again, when you say that you believe a coach is going to get fired, you're 70% sure, and then the coach gets fired, that means your analysis was correct, that he got fired. You didn't say that you were 40% sure, then you'd be wrong, because that means that you really didn't feel he was going to get fired.
Well, we've gone from 90% to 70%, so that's a change.
I have, yes.
But, I'll ask you this question also. Do you put any stock at all in some of the comments that have come out from the players the last couple of weeks?
Specifically?
Van Roten saying how hard they practice, how well they practice. I think Basham, after the game yesterday, came out saying how much he enjoys playing for Gaze and that guys don't realize how good of a coach he is. Again,
do I take that into account?
A lot of this could be viewed as lip service, but neither one of them at this point, knowing that the writing might be on the wall, have to come out and say anything.
I 100% believe that matters.
Okay.
It is possible. We talked about this before, and I think I think there are a lot of people who believe that, and I agree with them, that it's possible that he's already been fired, kind of. That a couple of weeks ago when he talked about letting the owner down and the whole idea about it just didn't just feel right, kind of, I don't know. It's just maybe it's over for Gase and he understands it and they're just going to write it out and they're going to be professional and keep him on board. And I think that is a distinct possibility. I think that, let's just put it this way. I think if he's going to get fired, I think that that's possibly what happened, to tell you the truth, that he's known for weeks that he's gone.
So he knew he was a dead man walking.
I believe so.
Really matter at this
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe if he gets fired, he knew already.
Okay.
Now, I continue to say though that, and it's interesting because I was earlier today on the Boomer show, Boomer and Geo. Boomer wasn't there. Who's the other guy that fills in for Boomer?
Jerry Recco.
Yeah. So they were talking, and Jerry actually brought it up about Gase possibly, I don't know, and not that that's going to happen, but it's kind of like one of the first signs of people saying what I have been saying for the last couple of months now. And then I read Mark Cannizzaro had an article a couple of days ago in the New York Post that was titled "Jets Can't Be Fooled by Adam Gase Again," basically coming out and saying, don't be fooled by these wins because that's what happened last year. You need to kind of put the nail in. It's done. But what that means is Mark Cannizzaro now is not really positive. Maybe he was 100% before, but back of his mind now, he might be 90%. And he's kind of trying to, this can't happen. Don't be fooled by this. So my point all along has been, I just don't think it's a slam dunk. I think he's going to get fired, but I just don't think it was such a slam dunk as everybody was leading it to believe it was going to be.
So I'll ask you the second piece of the puzzle, though, right? Not that they are a match set, but they do kind of go hand in hand. Do you think, again, if you're going to talk to Cannizaro saying don't be fooled by fool's gold by winning the last two games, has your view of Sam Darnold remaining as a quarterback of the New York Jets changed at all the last two games?
You know, the funny thing is when you watch these games and he's won the games as the quarterback. He hasn't turned the ball over. Some of the media, some of the analysts have actually, like, when they talk about Sam over the last couple of weeks, they're talking in positive, ways. I don't know about you, Jan. I'm watching these games and I just don't see there's a difference. He's still making the same poor plays, and then he's making a couple of good plays. The only thing he's not doing is turning the ball over. So, yeah, that's okay. I mean, you don't want him to throw stupid interceptions, and he hasn't done that. But we've seen this before. We've seen him go through stretches of not being stupid. But there's just so many plays that I watch on the field that I just believe that, what are you doing? Or that's not good. Like, for instance, he overthrows Perryman on that deep pass. If that was a good pass, it's a touchdown. That's a 50-yard touchdown pass. That's what Perryman's here for. Missed him. The last drive on third down at midfield, when he threw that ball down to Denzel Mims, if he throws the ball a little bit further down, Mims has a chance. He might be able to come down with it. When you underthrow it, he's got no chance. So he overthrows Perryman, underthrows Mims. It's just I don't see, there is nothing that has happened besides the bad interceptions. And keep in mind, remember we talked about whenever he has a really bad interception, then that's it. The Joey thing I can throw in there again from Friends, where it's just an avalanche of mistakes after that. So he hasn't made one of those mistakes the last couple of weeks, so he didn't have that avalanche. So I don't think he's improved on that because he hasn't had that bad interception. So no. If it's me today, chances are Gase will be fired. The new coach will come in, and I hope, and I'm saying today, I still have some more film work to do. I have some more decisions to make. But if you're asking me who I hope the Jets will take with the second pick, it's going to be Zach Wilson. That's who I'm going to hope because I don't think the Jets will take the chance of trading down. Look, they could trade down a couple spots. I could see that happening, gain a couple of extra draft picks. But out of all the quarterbacks I want in the first round, he's probably the guy I want. He's the guy that I think could also have that type of charisma you're looking for in New York. I think the fans will like him. He's got a little moxie in him. I think that's very important for New York. So if it's me, because I think if Gase stays, which is unlikely, I think you go ahead and bring Sam Darnold back another year. Maybe you use a pick later in the first or early second on a quarterback, a just in case guy that we talked about. But if Gase goes, I think Darnold should kind of go to start all over, bring in a new coach, and I want the kid from BYU.
I think, as you said, if Gase stays, it's more likely Darnold stays. If Gase goes, then I do think Darnold goes. But I do think that there's, I think, one stud offensive tackle that could go early in the draft. I think the kid at Oregon, who I do think that if the Jets are going to pass on a quarterback, that may be the target that you put him opposite Becton and hope you have your bookends for the next 10 years.
Yeah, the thing with that is and that could definitely happen again, I think more likely if it's Gase, Darnold, and you're going one more year with this group and you want to give him more protection, and then you bring in another receiver early in the draft or in free agency, and you really start adding talent around. But because there's a likely scenario that Gase is not going to be here, I just think that if you got to go after quarterback. You just have to take the quarterback. I think the luxury. It's too bad too, because if Darnold was your guy, wouldn't it be awesome to use that second pick on the offensive tackle?
Well, here's the thing, right? You've now in the last decade plus, you've had Sanchez. You've taken sixth overall, I think, or third overall. You took Darnold also third overall, right? You've had two guys who you thought were going to be your franchise quarterbacks. Look, Sanchez, say what you want, led them to two championship games. Led may be a strong word.
Yeah.
He enabled them, but he did play well in the playoffs.
He did.
He did beat Brady that game.
He did.
He played well enough against Manning that game, and the game they won. In the game they lost, he had a great first half, and they stunk the second half. In the game against Pittsburgh, the whole team didn't show up, but they couldn't get it in on 1st and goal from the 1,
Yep.
where if they had,
Yep.
might have been a whole different story in that game. So unfortunately, after that, they took the training wheels off, and he kind of fell off the face of the earth. Partly not aided mentally by having Tim Tebow there, which is an indication that he may not have been strong enough mentally to handle what he had to handle, to kind of hold
Like
off.
Sam Darnold.
Well, yeah,
I think it's all mental right now for Darnold.
I do, but I do think you could argue, though, that the success that he's had the last 2 weeks could be something to build on. Granted, we're grasping at straws a little bit here and hoping, but you look at Crowder, you look at Mims, Perriman, in my opinion, I haven't been overly impressed by him. Like I said,
but when did he play his best games? With Flacco.
Right.
That's why I can't really blame Perriman, but I understand what you're saying. I too. I mean, but
he's
then
the guy if you're replacing. He's the guy I'm replacing this year.
Oh yeah, without question. I mean, he's a luxury player. He's a guy that if you can get him at a good rate, and he could be Mims, Perriman, Crowder, and then by all means, if you can afford him, bring him back.
And we've gotten finally started to get some signs of life out of Chris Herndon.
Absolutely. Since that Charger game. And look, early in the season, that's what we said. Said maybe it'll take one pass catch, one big play, and it changes everything. And that's exactly what happened to him. It's funny, too, because he had the bad play early in the game, in the Charger game. Then he came up with the big play, and then it's been all big plays. Anytime he gets the ball in his hands, he hasn't made any mistakes. So that's good to see. But yeah, it's one of the I completely understand, which we don't know what's going to happen if you use your first round draft pick on a quarterback, whether they believe in Fields or Wilson, whatever. Again, that's what we had all discussed here for weeks, and everybody's talking about it. That's why it was Lawrence or anything could happen, and that's where we're at. So I get it, I really do. But I kind of just over Darnold. I am. I mean, I try every week to rewind all the bad stuff and to go, okay, let's start again, Sam. Come on, show me something, Sam. I'm with you, Sam. And he's not showing me anything. And I just can't keep doing it.
It's hard to argue with that. Again, we've seen snippets, but not enough. Though the question is, has the management seen enough snippets to warrant passing on a quarterback? Now, remember, they wasted, quote unquote, a 4th round pick last year on a quarterback.
Oh, I don't look. The kid was never going to play.
No. I'm not arguing with you, but
when I say wasted,
what I mean by wasted was, should you have used that pick on something else?
Well,
he believes they
believe that they've got a guy that could be a backup for years to come. A guy that can come in, for 4 or 5 games if necessary and play caliber NFL football. So nothing's changed. I mean, we never were going to see him. So yeah, I mean, that's and I'm okay with that. Now we don't have to worry about. See, I'm glad we have a young backup. I want a young backup. I want somebody that could be our young number 2. So I'm okay with that. And we got a boatload of picks this year. So that's why I just think it's so unlikely that, look, even if we bring Darnold back, I just think it's so unlikely that, all right, what are you going to do? Bring Flacco back and it's the same 3? No, you can't do that.
I don't think you're bringing back Flacco.
So you have to spend another pick on another quarterback. I don't care. Now that De'Ara King's gone, maybe the guy that, if he's in here, the guy that would be a really good, middle, another James Morgan type that you can just throw, hey, let's see if we strike gold with. Let's see. He's not in the top list here on our lads, top 21, but the kid Carson Strong from Nevada. I like what I see out of him as a potential late round guy. But that's what I'm saying. I don't care if you spend a 6th rounder or a 2nd rounder. You have to bring in another young quarterback if you keep Sam Darnold.
Well, I mean, I think we it's fairly evident what we need the team, right? You need a bookend tackle to go with Becton. You need a pass rushing, either linebacker or lineman, depending on what you play. They need more help in the safety. They clearly need to re-sign May long term. I think Hall has shown some signs, but clearly there's a lot of growth that's still needed there based upon what we've seen. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see a lot out of Davis, but when we did, he also showed that he's clearly needs a lot more work to be able to scratch the potential, but there's potential
there's
there.
potential there.
You like we've seen out of Basham.
Yep.
Again, the line has played relatively well. Fotokasi, even Shepard when he got a chance. We know what Williams did. We know what Franklin Myers has done. So there's Basham has played fairly well.
You hope Zuniga takes a step up next year.
So there's pieces there where if they don't go line, presuming they bring everybody back, that you're likely is you're going to go linebacker.
Well, you still need an edge rusher. You still need another defensive.
Well, the question is how you're playing it. You 3-4-4-3.
Yeah, and I again, it's just it's such a no-brainer. You go 4-3. The new defensive guy has got to go.
And 4-3. and Mosley's one of those linebackers, which we already know, presuming he comes back.
He's your middle linebacker. And look, who knows? Maybe if it's you have to believe that it's Joe Douglas will look to if Doug Peterson is fired. That's the guy that more than likely will become the Jets head coach. If Doug Peterson
that doesn't do that much for me.
It doesn't do much for me either. Okay,
I haven't seen much.
I agree.
That run, which was on the heels of Nick Foles playing out of his mind.
I know, and this could have been Frank Reich's team.
Yep.
So I agree. And then you take a look at the other Baltimore.
Could have been the coach from Buffalo's team too if they were smart.
Who's that?
McDermott is his name, isn't it?
Oh, you're talking.
What? Murrah wasn't the coach from Buffalo going to be the Jets coach potentially? I thought at some point wasn't he rumored to be in the mix? I thought maybe I'm wrong.
If he was high, I don't know if he was interviewed or not. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But the other thing is Baltimore and Mr. Wink Martindale. So, and if he comes,
which I'm sorry, just sounds like a game show host to me as the head coach. But
I know, and if he comes in, you have a guy who's never been a head coach before. You know, he I'm not sure. He doesn't look like the type of guy that can. You don't know how he's going to handle the media. You know, he's not a bombastic kind of guy. He's not Rex Ryan. I just don't. I don't know. But those are the more likely scenarios that Douglas will stick with his Baltimore Eagles, tree, and say, okay, these are guys I'm comfortable with. I know these guys, and I just. Again, that's what I've been saying for months. I mean, you can say what you want about firing Adam Gase to fire Adam Gase, but who is?
Robert Saleh's out there who's going to get some notice.
Yeah,
right?
Saleh's got ties to Detroit because that's where he's from.
Right,
a lot of people believe that's where he's going to go, and I could see that happening. But
Matt Campbell.
Matt Campbell's definitely at the top of the list. Okay. I just don't know if Matt Campbell would come to the Jets without Trevor Lawrence.
And I know you're not a big fan of Bieniemy.
It's not that I'm not a fan. It's that I just don't think he's as good as everybody thinks he should be. Because I think he's just as much of a mystery as any other coordinator without head coaching experience. Which again is the reason
he played in the league, right? He was an elite player at one point in time.
In college.
He seems to have the personality to be able to be a head coach also.
He does. He does have a checkered history, though.
Yeah, agreed. But none of us know what's going to happen until these guys get in here and have to manage people. Yeah, nobody knows.
That's the point.
Even you Peterson managed in the Eagles, right? I can't say they've been a crisp organization the last. Look, they obviously made that run, and you can say, but right now, look, they obviously all thought Wentz was the guy, and now they're paying the guy an enormous amount of money to be your backup quarterback.
That's right. And if Peterson felt that Wentz was his guy, and this is the result, that's not good judgment. So,
and thank God they signed Hurts right now because they'd be really up without a paddle if they didn't have Hurts there.
So there's nothing wrong with saying, well, maybe because you never know from year to year. It's not just the coordinators. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's just you need another year seasoning for maybe a Joe Brady or Staley from the Rams. These are young, up-and-coming guys who maybe they need another year of seasoning. How do we know that? See, I would rather say, all right, let's go get that guy in 2022 than let's just fire Gase because we hate him and we don't care who's the coach. Oh, it's Doug Peterson. We don't like him, but anything's better than Gase. I just think it's foolhardy. I don't get it. I don't think it's interesting early on in the season because everybody forgets these things for what we talked about in August or in the offseason. Let us remember a couple of things regarding the Jets that the national media and the fans talked about, and we talked about it. Let's remember the Jets started this season playing the second toughest schedule in the NFL. Okay, they did it with probably either the worst or one of the top 3 or 4 worst rosters in the NFL. That's what everybody talked about. This is a terrible roster. This is a bad roster. When Joe Douglas talked about playoff team, they laughed at him. And look, they were right. But on one hand, you'd say that the roster stinks. The schedule's tough. Then you've got all sorts of injuries. You have COVID. Nobody can practice. And you're blaming Adam Gase on everything. So it's like, come on, man. And it's only because they hated him when he got the job. And a lot of it is because they hated him because they thought he was goofy at the press conference. Because he was a Miami coach who was goofy at the press conference and he never stood a chance. And even when they won 6 out of 8 to end the season last year, didn't matter. He was, as far as Jets fans were concerned, he should have been fired week 1 or week 2 this year. They never gave him a chance. And I just think it's
let's not make believe his stint in Miami ended well. And a lot of the players who left his tenure there were much better elsewhere, which didn't help his case.
Yeah, but that again, a lot of that has to do with the Tannehill thing. A lot of it has to do with when you come into the league. First of all, the kid was never healthy for Gase. That was historical. But I don't think when you are taught to play by a specific coach, and remember, Miami didn't have a lot of talent either. Their talent was pretty bad. When he played and he was coached by Gase, you don't go to another team, are surrounded by better talent and a running game, and then people will go, oh, Tannehill's playing better now because the coach in Tennessee is getting the most out of him that Gase couldn't get out of him. When, oh, you're telling me that had nothing to do with Derrick Henry and this and that, and it's all Adam Gase's fault? I'm sorry, but he's the one that taught Tannehill how to play football for a few years. He obviously had to have used some of that to his advantage to become a better quarterback. So
not arguing with you, but on the flip side, right? If presuming that is the case, then I will agree with you to the extent that you are influenced by the coaches you have. Have we ever heard Tannehill come out and say, you know what? I actually did learn a lot from Gase. He helped me become a better quarterback.
That's why.
Right.
Yeah. So, but that was because of Tannehill's injury history.
But that doesn't help, right? No, him not recognizing it all or giving any credit at all to Gase just perpetuates the notion that Gase was the problem.
Well, I probably would wait to see what Tannehill. I know we're not going to get it done today, but I think we have to wait and see how Tannehill talks about his coaches 10 years from now. You know,
okay.
when he might look back and say in 10 years, you know, things were rough for me in the first few years, and Gase was hard on me, and now I understand why. You know, you get that happens. Sometimes it's just too early. Sometimes you just aren't. You just a guy just because there were press conferences we remember that Tannehill would basically call Tannehill out because he was sick and tired of him never being healthy. So the problem I have with that is how come Gase hasn't been like that with Darnold to the press conference? Not slamming him necessarily, but just criticize him a little bit. I mean, have we ever heard Gase criticize Darnold at all?
Maybe last year. I don't remember, but maybe last year a little bit. This year, no.
So, and remember this too.
I think last year he kind of viewed to a certain sense a lost year because of the mono.
And this is also important. Look, I have no idea if Adam Gase would be a good head coach. You don't ever know if a head coach is a good head coach until you get a team that's talented enough. You get to the point where you're fighting for a playoff spot, and then you find out if you have a really good coach. And that's why we have never been able to figure that out with Gase. And that's the reason why I wish we could have. It looks like we're not going to get that chance. Peterson, yeah, okay, he won a Super Bowl. But do we really think if Peterson would come to the Jets that he'd be a guy that we could sit back and go, oh, we're going to win 3 Super Bowls in 12 years with Doug Peterson?
Look, I don't think he's McCarthy. I don't think he's McCarthy. Let's put it that way.
But I agree.
We didn't want McCarthy last year for certain reasons. I don't know if I've seen much of Peterson. Then I go, oh yeah, he's clearly the guy. I got to have him. To me, I'd rather go with a younger guy who could grow into the role
Yes, me too.
and be a guy to mold the team as the team grows, as
Yeah.
opposed to getting a guy, I wouldn't say he's old, but older and more of a retread. I'd rather get a guy who's new, who they can grow around and see what happens. Look, say what you want about Ryan. And Ryan started liking his own press clippings too much at times, but they brought in a young guy and he recognized that he had to surround himself with a really good supporting cast of coordinators and coaches, which is what he did. And then, of course, they tried to accelerate the process and brought in all these veterans a little bit too quickly. But when they first started out and started building around there, they kind of built it and then supplemented it. But they brought a guy in who was young enough that he could make a difference and be a leader. That's the kind of guy who I think they need, is somebody who's late 40s, early 50s, bring in some good coordinators, hopefully be a guy who can pitch the team on others. Look, restore some of the vibe around the team right now, because right now, unfortunately, it's a little bit too much of the sad sack Jets, regardless of what Douglas is doing. I do think you need to get some of that washed away and bring in somebody who's kind of got a fresh perspective and view, who's young enough to be a difference in the future.
Well, that's why, I think Matt Campbell would be at the top of the list based on his age, his experience, his what he's been able to do at different stops. NFL is a different story, but most college coaches, I think, could make the switch now easier because there's more college concepts, especially offensively, that have now translated to the NFL. So I that's why Campbell's at the top of my list. Of course, I don't know. The more I think about it, I just don't believe in the Bill Cowher thing. All right, look, we'd love to have him here. If he becomes our coach, great. But I'm not even going to think about Bill Cowher. And then I just, that's people just, and I think the fans are starting to realize it more and more as we're about whatever. We're within less than 2 weeks away from more than likely having a new head coach opening who's out there. And I think they're seeing now. So you could say, let's fire this guy, but who is out there? And once we get past the Matt Campbells and, the Bill Cowhers, it's all pot luck. And it's, that's why I would rather, if it's going to be potluck, it's something I don't want. I've talked about it before. I would rather have an experienced coach. But if we're going to have an inexperienced coach, or if we're going to avoid a retread like Doug Peterson, then you know what? Go ahead and try to swing for a home run. Go ahead and try to swing for a Joe Brady type or one of those other guys. I'm okay with it. I would rather do that than, all right, let's just try to play it as safe as possible and hire, a decent coordinator with a decent resume. I don't know. It's just, I'm sorry, they're just not out there. It seems like the better coordinator candidates are actually on the defensive side, which is also something that we just don't want to have to go back to again, even though at this point, the offensive guy did not work out.
No arguments. Agreed.
Meanwhile, as far as the game was concerned, it was nice to see Bryce Hager lead the team in tackles. He made a couple of big plays early on in the game, and that's a kid who had a good college career. He gets his opportunity, so that was nice. A little bit of a trick play was cool to see, and it actually worked. So that's not bad. We talked, remember early in the season when the players weren't there, we were just tried to understand that you can't just throw these trick plays and all this other stuff out there when you can't rely on veterans to get the job done. Well, now that the players are out there, the veterans are there, you can open up your playbook more. And it was nice to see that, they can run a few of these trick plays every once in a while when they have the right personnel. And it worked out perfectly. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. And nobody picked up Berrios because he kind of got lost. So
I like the design of putting Berrios in the backfield. It's worked a few times. We saw it work against the Rams. It worked here. It gives the opportunity for him to sneak out of the backfield and become a nice little matchup problem.
Yeah, because of his speed. Yep.
So that was nice. Also, you mentioned, of course, some of the pressure from the team. Fatukasi, who we've been talking about since midseason, is becoming a true force for us. Now, he had the 2 penalties, roughing penalties. So that's got to change next year.
One of which was an actual joke.
Yeah, that was stupid. Yeah,
he basically barely chest bumped the guy and held
up
purposely, and they called that. So that's kind of, look, I get protecting the quarterback, but that's going above and beyond.
That was dumb. Yes, but That's one thing we don't want to ever see again next year. No more leading the league and roughing the passer or whatever the hell you want to call it, penalties. But yeah, you mentioned Basham having a big game. Unfortunately, Ficken and the special teams getting blocked twice.
Matt had one bad punt, but overall I thought he actually punted pretty well. That 14-yarder was horrific, but besides that, I actually thought he had a fairly solid game.
Yeah, I don't know who was to blame on getting the kicks blocked, but
I don't know.
That wasn't any good. And like you said, it's nice to hear the players, the way, not just the way that they're talking, but the way that they seem to be, I think it was the Miami game. Yes. Remember the Miami game with Flacco when the media made a big deal about the Jets sideline and how dead it was. And that's when we were at the height of our injuries. And we had Flacco out there. We had a bunch of injuries. But I understood the point. That has not been the case over the last 6 weeks or so. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that you got a lot of young guys out there. This is a rebuild. And
actually, there was one guy I thought I didn't mention who I thought had a good name in the game, and his name kept coming up a lot, and having watched it was Farley. I thought was all over the place yesterday.
Yes.
Every time I looked up, he was breaking up a pass.
I'm glad you mentioned
Granted,
him.
He was going against, third and fourth stringers, but still, he actually, I thought, had a pretty solid game yesterday.
I'm glad you mentioned him because I felt the same exact way. I've said to myself after he made that play where he jarred the ball loose from the receiver, I said, hey, you know what? He's actually making some pretty decent plays the last few weeks.
Yep.
So so again, this is nice to see that because these are the depth guys that are going to really help build your football team. So anyway, I like the attitude. I like the fact that the players were the 1-win team. They were winless last week. They had 1 win this week, and they really do look like they enjoy playing for one another. And whether Gase is here or not, I think the Jets the organization should owe Gase a little bit of something that he was able to keep this team together.
Oh, they
and to build a foundation where everybody seems to like each other and they enjoy playing for each other, because that's something that is very hard to find. And it seems like that's where the Jets are right now. And that's also why you have to draft well. And you have to give Joe Douglas a lot of credit because he's making sure he brings the right culture guys into the locker room.
No, I mean, again, I think he does get credit. I think Sean McVay said it last week, staying out and looking, part of that could just be blowing smoke up another coach's rear end and platitudes, which happens a little bit in the league, but not all the time. But look, if others are noticing it also, and look, on the one hand, it's nice for the players they got rewarded. For those of us as fans who had different aspirations, it comes with a cost, which is the loss of the first overall pick.
All right, so next week when we come on the air, probably
post Black Monday.
Yeah, because look, we'll know Adam Gase's fate probably by noon. Most of these coaches are going to get fired early. The East Coast guys will be fired before noon, and if that's it, if you survive Monday by 2 or 3 o'clock East Coast time, I don't think you're getting fired. But chances are, if we do the show next Monday afternoon, we'll be talking about the opening for the New York Jets at head coach, and then we could really start to talk about what to look forward to as far as who the next head coach will be of the team. So,
yep, agreed.
Either way, it'll be over. So
that's true.
Next Monday, more than likely. So hopefully we'll be able to do this again next Monday. Jan, appreciate your time as always. And one more game, and then it's off to the off season, and that's when we could really start pumping our fists, because we've got tons of draft picks, tons of cap space, and it's going to be a fun few months.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, Jan.
No problem.